Buenos dias. So what I wanted to do today was practice the webinar material I've been putting together, and it's basically around how to identify two primary subconscious blocks that might be in your way in owning and exploring the fullness of your potential. And so I work with a lot of people who have been stuck, hey Alex, been stuck on the same thing for a while, and it might not necessarily register as a thing except for they feel uncomfortable or just frustrated or maybe embarrassed, so they think they should be somewhere that they're not. And I particularly work the most with really smart people, and I make that distinction because there is an extra element of discomfort that comes from being a really smart person who can't make a thing move. Hey, Robert. So basically what that means is it's like you get stuck in your mind. And I have a set of skills or tools or methods or whatever that can help kind of like create a pathway beyond. And the trippiest shit is that the way out is to first stop trying to get out. What? Yeah, if you can stop trying to change, which basically means like, yeah, if you think something is wrong right now, then you persist in this space of like, no. And do I believe in CBD? Okay, I'm gonna hold on like pain because I'll lose my thoughts. Hey Cam, but I'll get back to that. So the first step in getting past something that you couldn't get past before is to stop trying. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy, but really I've been doing this for a while and it fucking works. Maybe not for everybody, maybe not all the time, but it's definitely worth giving it a shot if you haven't before. And what's really challenging in adopting that as a strategy is it seems like, oh, if I don't try, then it will always be that way. But again, I work with people who've been kind of like stuck on the same thing for a while, and so then I would challenge you to consider if pressurizing yourself to do it was not working, should you keep doing it? You know what I'm saying? So how do you come to accept and stop resisting where you are? Well, you consider, there are several different approaches, and so what's so beautiful about development and the work that I do is really, it's just like, here's a person, and you kind of come at it from all these different ways, trying to get this message across that's like, you can accept where you are. And everybody kind of needs to hear it differently depending on where they are and what's happening. And when I'm talking about one way to do that is to consider instances where you thought things should be different than they were, but it worked out perfectly. And so that would be one way to relax mental resistance against what's happening. So you basically say like, you know what, maybe this is right. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you can look back or around and say like, look, here's some shit that went down. At the time, I thought the sky was falling. In reflection, I see that perhaps could have been perfect and allowed for this other thing. So maybe what's going on right now is okay. Again, every strategy is really just another way to say, hey, right now is okay. Another way to get past that initial, let's say like resistance, which basically means like you're hesitant to chill the fuck out about what you can't change, is to say like, all right, maybe I'll always feel this way. So again, I work with really smart people. I've been up against things for a while, and one of the things that they encounter is this like super intense pressure to do something like miraculous. So it's like, some people have like a life goal of being like an accountant or a lawyer, and others have like a life goal of like changing the fucking world or doing this. And so that pressure sits on your shoulders, and do you realize how high that bar is? Sometimes it's helpful just to like be like, wait, I'm attempting Christ consciousness. Like, this isn't like your regular promotion, you know? So if you kind of zoom out and look at the magnitude of what you're trying to attempt, that might also be freeing and be like, okay, look, that's a big ass task. Maybe I don't get it all done this life. Is that okay? If that's the case, then what? And so can you come to accept that where you are right now might be it? And if you are like, all right, look, my situation is never going to change. I'm never going to have more money. I'm never going to have a relationship. I'm always going to be physically uncomfortable. I don't like where I live. If those things never change, then what? And if you can, and not from like a then what, like go take action. It's just saying like, let's say I have to accept that this is my life. Let's say that I have to accept that I'll never achieve my goals, that I'll never find someone. Let's say that like, that's it. This is it for me. Then what? It's like, well, you know, I guess I'll do the best I can. It's sort of like, I think a lot of people who have had really debilitating like physical tragedies, maybe they lose a limb or have some kind of permanent adaptation to their physical body. So it's like they can spend, or Stephen Hawking, you know, like they can spend the rest of their life saying like, it shouldn't be this way, it should be another way, or they can allow for it to be what it is. And so what I'm suggesting here as the second strategy in acceptance is to consider maybe it'll always be that way. And if that's the case, how can you find peace or okayness there? So if you'll never fulfill your potential, if you'll never be the weight that you want, if you'll never find somebody, could you find happiness or peace in that place? If you accepted that basket of goods and didn't think it should be otherwise, how might you allow for yourself to enjoy what was there? I know, it's really trippy and seems sort of counter to movement forward, but it really makes a big difference if you just can come to terms with like, this is my plot of land. It's not going to be that plot of land. So if I've got this plot of land, what can I do? So if you're just joining, oh, interesting. Okay, so if you're just joining, what I'm talking about today are some blocks that really smart people encounter on their journey to full expression, and I'm particularly focused on acceptance of the current situation. So I talked already about different ways that you can, or one way that you can relax your mind. And let's say, so when I'm talking about resistance, I'm basically saying you're like looking at this moment and you're saying, no, this is wrong, it shouldn't be this way, I'm failing. And I'm saying, while that originally or may initially register as a helpful technique to move you forward, is it? So let's say you take that pressure off of yourself and you're like, all right, look, I'm going to stop damning myself. I'm going to stop damning what's happening. I'm just going to let it be. How can I come to a mental stillness to let this be? And I said one strategy is to look at things in your past or around that initially looked like a fucking shit show, but somehow worked out. And so you kind of say like, maybe this judgment of good or bad that I'm placing on this set of circumstances, either inside or outside, maybe there's some wisdom here. Maybe this goes somewhere. And so you just kind of relax yourself, kind of collapse down these ideas until you're like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this is okay. The second thing I talked about was, Guess I'll have to come back to that one. Sean, this is my plot and I can only work this one. Scares the shit out of me. Oh, thank you for that tip. Hey, Sean. So I'm saying like, if you can then explore the idea that perhaps your life won't get any better, that somehow relaxes you, where you're saying like, look, I only have these 3 shirts. I can be upset that I don't have 5 shirts. I can be upset that I don't have 3 different shirts. But if these are the shirts I have, and I have to accept that this is it, there is no more. How can I approach it? What is here for me? What is enjoyable? And as soon as you stop fighting what is, then somehow you can work with it in a way that's like, well, this is nice. Like, I can do something with this. And it seems really scary to stop pressurizing yourself or pushing or damning to be like, no, more, better. But it fucking helps. And when you really like explore what would be the point of having 5 shirts or being different, it's so that you feel good about your life. So the hack is to kind of can do whatever you need to do to become okay with your life as it is, and then it starts to move. I also work with people who are, I call them like big points of consciousness, but it basically means that it's a person with access to a lot of energy. And I know that's like a fluffy-ish, and I'm not really even sure how to articulate it or what, but it basically means that what works for people who live superficially or like not that deeply or who haven't had that much pain or experience won't work for them. There is too much, it's like diverting a small river versus like diverting a big ass river. If you are a big ass river and you are saying no to your river, the impact on your experience is far greater than someone who is, just working with like a little river. And I think that can be really powerful and accepting as well, because that means that your range is higher. And so you might feel like some type of way that it's been really hard for you to do one thing or another thing. But if you're like, wait, if I've been this low, if I've been this sad, if I've been this anxious, if I've been this poor, if I've been this thing, then perhaps like there's an upside that matches. And no fucking way. Like and you can look at this quantum, like what I'm summarizing here is not distinct from quantum mechanics. Like if you really look at the observer like all of that stuff, which I should have like, I like look at the science and I'm like, all right, great, got it, it works. But if you look at it, like it's legit. And then also law of attraction, neuro-linguistic programming, the mind, psychology, it's like all of this stuff really basically says like, come to terms with who you are and the way things are, and then miracles will happen. But somehow we get this idea that if we are really like hard and like hard against ourselves, it won't work. Hey guys. So what I think is also helpful to make as a distinction is, again, like, so I work with people who are really smart. So they usually have a high awareness of the external world. So it basically means like you're alert. Hey, Randy. But they also have a high awareness of their internal world. And so that basically means like you've got layers of awareness. So you are aware of your thoughts, and then you're aware of the way that your thoughts could be, but they're not. And then you're aware of that awareness, and you've got feelings about all of these things. So let's say that you've come to terms with like, I'm detached from my thoughts and I allow them to flow about. But at the same time, you're like, well, I'm thinking a lot about that. That's probably wrong. I'm feeling a lot about that. That's probably wrong. And then you try to like manage these. And so maybe you have relaxed or found surrender to a set of external circumstances or even internal circumstances, but there's still this like discomfort inside thinking like it should be different than it is. And I'm saying that radical acceptance where it's like, well, this is the way that it is. See if you can afford that same flexibility for you around your internal processes. So that means like, oh, I'm really negative right now. Oh, I'm really hard on myself right now. Oh, I'm really this. Even though you know that's not supportive of what you want to do, let it be. And so this is trippy, but it's like, so what I offered earlier was an idea where you just kind of like accept that shit is the way that it is, and basically maybe you'll never fulfill your potential. Maybe you'll never live your dreams. Maybe you'll always be in the place that you're in right now. And let's say that you're like, all right, fuck, Shay, I'll give it a shot. I'm saying that you will notice times when you are not on board with that messaging, and you will have resistance, and then you will have resistance about that resistance. And I'm saying get as high as you can and let that all be okay. So if you are not on board with that messaging, rather than judge not being on board with that messaging, accept, oh, I'm not doing it right now. I'm not. That's okay. That's okay. If you can master, that's okay. I think that's life. So what's really interesting, I have, and I'll send it to you because I need more reviewers. I have a sort of like a personal account of like my whatever revolution, and I sent it to a friend, and he's like, so Shay, like, where's, like, did you find the kingdom? Like, where's the peace? And it's inside, and it's basically saying, like, you don't, it doesn't matter what's happening outside or inside, like, you're good. And there are stops along the way where it becomes very obvious and evident that you're like, look, okay, I don't need to have that car, I don't need to have that thing, like, I don't need to, and so maybe you come to terms with external things being external things, but maybe you haven't allowed for that inside as well, where it's like, I know I'm being irrationally angry, I know I'm being self-conscious, I know I'm being, and you kind of like then judge those things. I'm saying let it all be good, no matter what you're doing outside or inside, just sort of accept. And it's not like, it doesn't mean that you won't grow forward, it just means that you are like, you bring your mind and your body and life into the same place, and you say, okay, period, until you kind of relax enough, and then shit just moves. Like, I wish I could articulate that more scientifically, which is why I say just like experiment. Like, don't believe me, like experiment, see if that works for you, see if that's true, and give yourself like some time to practice. It takes time to slow down your momentum. Another thing is, like, if you've been somebody, again, I work with really smart people, and they've generally found success in one area or another. If it's been challenging for you to change this area of your life, but other areas you just flip switches, it's sort of like disheartening, because it's like, yeah, but whenever I go over here and I want to make this happen, I do just this one thing and then it works. But over here, like, so that's okay. Like, maybe that area is a little different right now. And so you give yourself time and space to kind of like ride that momentum to stillness. So if your momentum is around being like a pain in the ass to yourself, like think of like, all you really have to do is listen or remember some of your parents' catchphrases and their like approach and interpretation of the world, or television or whatever, whoever was like in your ear. When you hear that, it's not you, it's just ghosts. And so while the ghosts come to stillness because we have some sort of attachment where we think like, oh, I need to listen to this because this is good information, it's not. I mean, initially it was connected to your survival as a child because you're like, oh, I have to do that or I'm going to be punished, or I have to hear that or I have to heed that. No. But it doesn't mean that you can just flip the switch and it'll be there, it'll be different the next day. And if that's not working, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. That's just it. That's just where you're at. And so you just kind of like, I think of like a plane, like kind of like settling. You just ride it to stillness. And you know what's cool? Maybe it'll never be completely still. Maybe it'll never be completely quiet. And in that instance, you just kind of know, I live in a climate where it rains. And when it rains, I go inside. I don't wish it to be different. I don't expect it to be different. I just let it rain when it rains. And so if you've got this voice in your head that's just like incessant about how you're fucking stuff up, just let it. And you know, like, oh, it's really active right now. Okay. So I know these are all sort of like counterintuitive strategies to transformation, and I'm saying like, don't believe me, try yourself. But it really is. I've been doing this I've been working with people one-on-one relative to behavior change for more than 7 years. Hey Peter, have fun, have a great day. And that's it. Self-love is the highest teaching as far as I can tell. It's a panacea. And what does self-love mean to me? It means that you say okay to whatever is happening, and rather than think that your response should be different than it is, you just hug it. You say like, it's okay, we're okay, everybody's okay, it's okay right now, it's okay, we're okay. That's it, that's all I've got today. Also, let's see, this is what I'm reading right now. If you haven't read Kurt Vonnegut, I totally recommend. That's some smart shit. I don't read nonfiction right now. Well, there's some, but it's like, I find that there is truth here as well, maybe more. Thank you for that feedback. Oh yeah, okay, so Sean, that's a great thing. I'm glad that you brought that up. Which I have to remember to read things out loud. My fear is that when I get complacent and comfortable with it. So what is so beautiful, and like, this has been my experience, and I'll just be like transparent. What feels the best to people is not being lazy or overindulgent, but being alive and growing. And we don't necessarily believe that to be true because we've been using an external force rather than our internal force, our internal expression. By Randy, thanks for stopping, I let my shit fall the fuck apart. Like, I spent like, I don't know how long, maybe 6 months laying on the floor in darkness and quiet. And that happened naturally as a result of seeing that what I wanted to do wasn't not real. It's like I had this really passionate drive to save the world, and then I walked through like, what is reality, and I saw that what I was expressing or projecting onto the world was my own pain. And then after I started to work through that and seeing that what the nature of reality is, and that pain is a gift and all these things, I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like, I don't need to save anybody. So who am I? Like, what do I do? What the fuck is this? And I also, I see it almost like when a black hole converges to a point of singularity and then there's like a white hole on the other side. Everything like sucked out of me, and like, on like will to live. It was quite a fire. And when I peeled off all of these ideas around why I could or should or needed to do anything and let myself do absolutely nothing, at that very like base, it was like born again, where on the other side you see that you do stuff because it feels good, and you do stuff because you want to. It's like when you're not doing it for any other reason other than not to get anywhere, but you're just doing it because it's there. It's different. It's like, I know that's all really like not that helpful, but it's almost like prior to the point of singularity, I really expected to find happiness, peace, safety, love in things in the distance or outside of myself. And as I collapsed away from all of that expectation and really just illusion and saw that I am everything and there's nothing outside of me, then it was like, why do anything? Because you are everything and all this other stuff. But then it's like, there's sort of like this lull. But on the other side, you just do it because you want to. It's like, if you, one way to really explore that concept is to do a thought experiment and consider if you were completely resourced, if you had all the money you would ever need, if you had all the love you would ever need, if you had all the health, if you were completely full, what would you do then? How would you spend your life? And you would notice that there would probably be a period of time where you balance being out of balance, and then from that point forward, then you would develop sort of like a routine or a lifestyle that was healthy and supportive of yourself and others, because you're like, I have everything I need. And while it's really kind of fun to change the game for other players, and like it's it's pretty interesting. But many of the people that I interact with have been in a deficit for so long that they don't trust the other side. So you just kind of have to let yourself be overindulgent for a while and trust that when you are full, then when you step back out into the world, it will be from a place of wholeness. And I mean, this is like living, breathing, walking it, like been there, done that. So I'm not sure if that's true for everyone or just true for me, but when I've taken pressure off clients to do certain things or be a certain way, then they sort of do it. Bye, Sean. Thanks for coming. All right, guys. That's it. That's all I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about today, but I don't know today. Anyhow, I really appreciate everybody coming out and participating. It's been great to start to host these in a longer format. I don't know if you saw, but in my story right now, I have a draft of a webinar that I'll be presenting at some point in some way. I'm also preparing some of this material for a learning management system, so sort of like an online course. So if this is stuff that's been interesting or helpful to you, like, let me know. All right, well, love you guys. Have a great day.